Hi, good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Thursday live stream where we talk about photography and what's new, what's happening. And I'm always happy to see everyone here. Thanks for joining me. Um, so I wanted to talk about the OM1 again, of course, with the my experience this week with birding, because I did get the 300 millimeter f4, I believe, since I last talked to you, but I didn't really have a lot of field time. And I've been trying to go out as much as I can, either just right in my backyard or maybe out to Huntley Meadows Park, which should only be a 15-minute drive for me. But I tried to go out again this morning, and it's a wonderful park with all kinds of variety of birds and ducks and things. But I get there. It takes me 45 minutes to get there because it's rush hour in the morning here. And then I get there and I forgot to put a battery in the camera. And I only have one right now for my OM1. Yesterday I went out, and David will tell you because I met him out there. I forgot to bring memory cards. So I need to make a checklist or just make sure everything's ready before I leave, because I don't know. I'm not good at planning things. I'm very, very spur of the moment. Let me just go now. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and watch YouTube all day. But anyhow, let me check in. Who's here? Marsha's here. Good to see you, Marco. Oh my goodness, you're here before me. My gosh. Druid, good to see you. Jeff Painter, John Follows. Oh, Dick Budnick. That's a new name. Welcome to the chat. Gigafish, always good to see you. Rocky Cola, another good new name for me. Yes, I believe you can do it directly. I'm sorry, Rocky Cola has a question. Wanted to make sure that you can download photos and videos right from the. I've never tried it. I can try it right now. Why not? Let's just do a quick Q&A. Oh. Because all the Olympus cameras have a USB mode that they call storage, and when you do that, you can access whatever pictures are on the USB at that time. So I have a picture in here. Oh. Hold on. What did I do? There we go. All right. So right now, a little menu comes up when you plug in the USB into the computer, and then you just select storage, click OK. And then yep, it comes right up. So there it is, OM system. So it comes right up, and then you just go into it just like any file, and all your pictures are right there, no problem. Okay, so that's that. All right, and I lost video, then I lost my mouse. Oh, there it is. All right. And let's see. Now, yeah, I'm sorry the title was a little confusing. I'm not going to be live in the field birding, although I could try that, but I don't think I have enough data on my phone to do that. And Rob Trek, pack your bag the night before. Yeah, like I said, if I was planning on going out, I would do that, but I just never plan. I just, I look out the window and I say, "Oh, weather looks nice. I'm gonna go." Uh, Now, when I have a photo job, I do pack the night before because that's scheduled, right? Usually a day or two before. So, for paid work, but just for going out and shooting, yeah, not so much. And sorry about all the ads. It does support the channel though, so I appreciate it if you do get through them okay. Uh George was saying about the how many ads do you have to get through to get here? I know. I know. Um Rob Trek, what device are you using to record camera footage with the menus that show us on YouTube? Oh, it's an old Blackmagic. It's here in my bag, I think. Yeah. So it's just this thing, right? It's the USB cable. But it takes a standard SD card and records in full HD, which is, all I need for recording the screen. And it uses standard NP, generic batteries on the back. And I can usually get about an hour and a half out of each battery, so 3 hours straight. So I put two in, then I take two more, and then I just hook it up like this, and then I run the HDMI cable from here into here. Oops, sorry. EM10 is not the master at focusing, but that's it. And that's what I do to record. They don't make these anymore. I forget what it's called. It just says Blackmagic Design on the front. And sorry, I don't remember what it's called exactly, but I bought this about 4 years ago, maybe longer. And it does a good job. Any HDMI recorder now, they sell a lot of them. I paid like $300 for this one when it came out. You might find them on eBay. And it weighs a little bit, right? Let's see. I mean, it's awkward because the problem is when I'm using this thing, when I look through the EVF, which is how I like to shoot birds, right? I can't see anything. All I see is a clean screen of what the camera sees. I don't have any of the overlays like the shutter speed, the ISO, the focusing box. There's no overlays or anything. I just get a clean screen. So this thing with the batteries and memory card weighs 576 grams, which should be fine on top of the camera. But ideally, you want to have a cage and have this attached so you don't put any stress on the camera itself. But that's what I've been doing and haven't had any issues. Let's see. But yeah, so let's talk about the birding. Now that I'm getting some field time and some experience with it, I'm getting a feel for the autofocusing and how it's working. Because when you watch the screens, or you've seen previous videos, maybe either mine or I don't have too many yet, but from some other creators out there, it looks freaking amazing, right? And it's like you can't miss when you have this camera, and I would say 90% of the time, you really can't miss. If you got a fast lens and good light, it's really hard to miss the focus on a bird with the bird tracking. But there are situations when it does struggle. And even though it sees the bird, it's going to struggle. And I'll show you some examples of that. So it's not perfect yet. They may be able to fix it. I don't know. Some of the challenges that the autofocusing has, but I doubt it. I doubt it because of the way I think the autofocus is working. But let me just show you a quick clip of some time in the field. Let's see. I don't think I public. Where is it? So we'll just go to the screen. This one. I'm working on it now. Yeah, that's not the right screen. So this is a swallow, and you know how small these things are. They're tiny and they just fly everywhere, right? I think, hold on, let me do it this way because I don't want to miss any of the chat. No, this one. Okay. So this is a swallow, and I'm just pixel peeping there, and it's a bit underexposed. As you can see, my settings, for swallows, I'm running at 1/6000th of a second and negative half an EV. I should have done plus a little bit because what I was worried about was overexposing for the breast of the bird, right, is completely white. So I underexposed slightly so that I could try to recover those in post-processing. And you absolutely pretty much have to process everything when you do birds. The straight out of camera JPEGs for larger birds you might be able to get away with if you're close enough, but when you have to crop in to less than 1 megapixel, I mean the way this bird is now in the frame when he comes in, we're talking like half a megapixel or less once you crop in. This one here might be 1 megapixel. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much you have to crop in. And I'm shooting with a 300 millimeter f4. But what I love about this lens is look how stable it is once you start tracking. The image stabilization, other than when I'm pointing the, moving the camera, when I actually start to track a bird, it's so stable and very smooth, and I can just follow a bird, and you can see it's locked focus, and it has no problems in situations like this autofocusing, as you can see. And if you look in the top right corner where the battery is, right next to it is the buffer. So as I'm clicking away, the buffer, right now I have 90 frames available to me, and then it counts down when you start taking things away from the buffer. So you're getting virtually instantaneous, shooting at whatever shutter speed you want. Man, that one got really close, that hummingbird, and I don't think I got it. I did get this shot though. But it's really amazing. Now this is where it struggles a little bit, right? Not right here, but when the hummingbird goes into the trees, I lose it. And then it picks it back up when it gets into the kind of the clear area, into the sky. But then, okay, so I'm just pixel peeping there, but it's tracking and focusing on this bird, no problem. And I'll share all the settings when once I get down a workflow in the field of how to shoot birds in flight or birds in general. I am coming up with a really good workflow in the field to capture these kinds of images, right? And as you can see, this bird right now is probably half a megapixel in the frame, so that's why it's a little bit soft. The other reason some of my images are a little bit soft is I was using a UV filter on the front of the lens, and it was just not a very good quality UV filter. And if you were here last week when I was editing some of the images, I was getting these weird artifacts, and lines and weird bokeh. And that was because of the UV filter. So I took the UV filter off, and I haven't been able to get out other than very briefly yesterday without using the UV filter. So look forward to images going forward to be sharper and cleaner from this lens. But again, I'm tracking this hummingbird, and it's booking, man. Let me tell you. But and you can see it switched off to another hummingbird. So this is another area that you have to be very conscious of. I'm using all focus points, and oh, this was really cool. I was trying to get, let me back up a little bit. You can see the buffer. So now I'm pixel peeping. Let me go back a little bit. Explain what's happening here. So what happened here is, look at my shutter speed. I was trying to get my ISO down lower. So I lowered the shutter speed because these ducks are just sitting there, right? So I got my ISO down to 200, and I said, okay, now let me focus and get a nice clean shot of these birds. And then right when I was doing that, they took off. So I was not at a shutter speed that was ideal for birds in flight. But it happened so fast, I didn't have time to change my shutter speed. But as they take off, the camera, now look at the top left. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's top left, but look at the buffer counter. These birds only flew for about 2 seconds, which was, and I never filled the buffer that whole time I did that sequence. So here's the sequence. I'm just looking at it in the camera now. But it just nailed focus the whole time. See that there's motion blur on the wings there. Because my shutter speed was at 1/1000th, which was, my fault, right? But it pretty much nailed focus the whole time. And I'm zoomed in 5x here, 2x. You can see that on the bottom. And then I ended up picking one. But this is the beauty of shooting with this camera is I can choose from any number of frames. I probably got 20, 30 frames here that I can choose from because they're all in focus, other than the motion blur because my stupid shutter speed. Let me stop here. The other thing is here is this is a little bit larger bird, so when it focused onto the bird and caught it, it was not distracted by the background, which is very busy because it was all blurred out. So it didn't try to focus on anything in the back once it acquired the focus on the duck here. And then here's some geese, multiple geese. And this is a challenge too, because you never know which bird it's going to focus on. And the depth of field is so shallow that all the other birds are going to be slightly out of focus, and only one is going to be in focus. And as you can see, it kind of jumps around. It's on that bird. It's also on the bird below it. But there's 4 boxes here. God only knows which one it's focusing on. I don't know. So that was that. And then I heard these geese taking off, so I whipped the camera around and started shooting these guys. And in this case, it had no problem focusing on these. It was just really amazing. And again, it's not distracted by the trees in the background because they were blurred out enough. And then this is a little, I think, a barn swallow sitting there. David gave me a hard time about this shot because he said there's people taking that kind of shot with an iPhone. I'm like, no, this is an award-winning shot, David. I mean, come on. So then it took off, and you can see I paused it there. Let me, but there it is, and then it just took off. And of course, I was using Pro Capture, so I did capture this because if you look at the bottom where it says SC2, I have this custom setting for Pro Capture, and there's the arrow, the circular arrows there. That's telling me that I am capturing this particular image, and it's sharp. I captured this, and then I let go of the buffer of the shutter button, and oh, that's the end of the footage there. So let's go to Lightroom. That's the Osprey I was tracking earlier. This was a cool shot. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Let me get rid of some of this distractions. But if you look close, you can see a little bug here that it's about to catch. And, you know, this is heavily edited and cropped. This is cropped down to 0.4 megapixels. It's just crazy. And then let's see. There's another one I captured. This one came out really nice. And here's another one. I did a sky replacement on this. I should have used a bigger sky. I'll show you what I mean. This is the barn swallow. This didn't come out too well. The details are pretty much mush. If I punch in, you can see most of the details gone. So it just, there's the geese. I haven't processed this yet. This is the straight out of camera raw. And it looks just a tiny bit out of focus here. Dang. So I'd have to pick a different image. Did it focus on the wingtip? That's what happened. It's focused over here. Can't win them all, right? It's not perfect. Here's another one. This one came out pretty good. Let me let that resolve. Yeah, this one came out really well. But it's a little further away, right? So you have a greater depth of field. This other goose, man, this goose just filled the frame. You know, it like just flew almost right in front of me, it felt like. And here's another, I forget what kind of swallow this is. This one came out pretty good. And again, that's cropped in pretty heavily. There's the duck that I talked about, or we showed in the video. That's the frame I ended up taking. And this is processed. And here's the barn swallow just before it took off. So using the Pro Capture, I chose this frame because this one was sharp and in focus, and you know everything was. This is what 200%. Let that. Yeah, this came out really good. But look how shallow the depth of field is. By the time you get right past the eyeball, it's already out of focus. And then these weird lines here, this is because of the UV filter. These artifacts over in here. So I'm not going to have that going forward in any of my images. And I would imagine even this part over here is going to be sharp or sharper once I get some images without the UV filter. And yeah, there's a merganser, a cardinal. That's the raw image. That's the processed one. So let me see, is there any, this was the green heron. But basically, you can go to my Flickr page here. Oh, here's a shot. Actually, this is a shot I took yesterday without the UV filter on. And you can see all the artifacts are gone. And now this image is tack sharp. This particular barn swallow has a nest underneath the the boardwalk. So he's always sitting right here, or she is. I don't know if it's a boy or girl, male or female, I should say. This was a wood duck. What am I at? I'm at ISO 1600, and this is pretty heavily cropped, but without the UV filter, I'm already noticing a big difference in the images um, in terms of sharpness. This is heavily cropped also, but this was a pileated woodpecker that I captured. Um, and this is also the 300 f4. But everything, I've posted a lot of stuff here on my Flickr that you can pixel peep and look at the settings and everything like that. Don't put a lot of weight into the settings and stuff yet, because I'm still practicing and just trying to get a feel for all the different kinds of shutters, all the different settings you can use in the camera to capture these birds. These were with the 75 to 300. I think I showed these before. But if you have good light and things are not moving too much, you can get even this one here. This is at ISO 3200. Oh no, this is the 300 f4. I'm sorry. And this was the 75 to 300. I think I showed these last week though. But even with a kit lens, you can get really, really sharp images and good focus, even with the 75 to 300, but you need good light. Because look at my settings here. I'm at 1/4000th of a second at f5.9, ISO 1600. So I have really good light. Based on the shutter speed, I have good light. So that's mainly all the highlights of the birding. So let me talk about some of the challenges. Let me go back to a full screen. How do I do that? Okay, so let me talk about some of the challenges. Gigafish says he finds his UV filter shots more sharp. No, I'm definitely getting softer images and weird bokeh. So I need to, and I'll show you. Well, I showed you that one hummingbird shot where I was getting those weird artifacts. It's in every image, even the green heron image. Like this is a recent one I took. You see all these weird lines, like painting. It's very painterly. I think for creative photography, this might be kind of interesting. But that bokeh should be smooth as butter, and it's not. It's all jittery. And that's having an impact on the detail on the heron as well. Look at this bokeh ball here. It's all sliced up and choppy. That is because of the UV filter. But anyhow, what brand? It's a Pro Capture. I got it for free when I bought the lens. I was haggling. I said, "Give me something free. I'm spending $3,000 here," and they gave me a UV filter. And she said it's a German glass, high quality filter, but no, it's crap. I think it's a ProMaster HD. I don't know where I put it. I took it off the other day, and now it's because it has no value to me now. So I lost track of what I did with it. But I wanted to protect the giant element on the front of this lens and not sacrifice image quality too much. But when I'm getting bokeh like that, I cannot fix that in post easily. It's a pain in the butt. And if the bokeh looks like that, how bad are the details being affected as well, right? So this week or next week, if we have good weather and lighting, I should get better shots. And mainly because of the lighting and because of my technique and skill set are getting better. As you can see from that video clip we watched, my tracking is getting a lot better with this very, very narrow field of view, right? Coming off this 300 millimeter. And even at 300 millimeters, my God, you have to crop in like crazy. Yeah, depth of field is still an issue, even at a distance. That's what surprised me a little bit. I mean, on paper, you would think you have enough depth of field, but you can see, even at distance, I still struggle because the depth of field is so shallow. So I'm half tempted to go back to shooting at f8 when I need to get a deeper depth of field, if I can, because you can't always, right, shoot at f8. You need the light. I can give you an example. Let me look through my. I mean, that hummingbird shot. This hummingbird shot doesn't really count because I'm probably 3 or 4 meters away, like 10 or 12 feet away from this bird. So the depth of field is extremely shallow. I mean, just right behind the eyeball, it's already out of focus, right? Let me see if I can find. How about this one? This is heavily cropped also because they were at a distance, but this duck is in focus. The duck right next to him or her is slightly out of focus, just like that. I mean, because of the depth of field, it's so shallow. And these ducks were easily 30 to 50 feet away, if not, which is what, 10 to 15 meters away from me. And even at that distance, I'm already losing. You can see the beak here is totally out of focus. That's not a great example, but it did surprise me a little bit how quickly things got out of focus. And these are, let's see, this might be a good example too. Because this guy, oh no, this guy was pretty close. Because look how much I can punch in. This is with the 75 to 300 kit lens. Yeah, I'm at f8, so I got good depth of field. So f8, I feel like I can get a decent depth of field. And again, this bird is probably 10 meters away. It's a larger bird, so I'm filling the frame a little better. And shooting at f8, you can see the depth of field. The entire bird is in focus, and the water just a little bit behind the bird's in focus, and everything in front. So this was a perfect shot in terms of depth of field. So I was really happy with that. Okay, so definitely, my flicker, you can pixel peep these, look at the settings. You don't know the distance the bird is away, but if you do the magnify and punch in, and it doesn't expand very much, like it doesn't zoom in much, I heavily cropped it, right? Because I didn't resize them. I just uploaded them the size of the crop. So everything on there is at its full resolution, so to speak, whether it's cropped in or it's the full image. Most of them are cropped in quite a bit. So that depth of field is definitely an issue. Maybe I need to go to 5.6 and see if that helps. I don't want to go to f8. I mean, if I go to f8, I might as well just use my kit lens, right? Because I get, actually, the kit lens is definitely softer though. I mean, although I do get amazing images, they're heavily processed uh, to get that kind of like sharpness. And I over process a little bit sometimes, and it's obvious when you pixel peep. But just looking at them on a screen, they look great. And the Sim says you must use high F numbers if the bird is far away, especially if it's a large bird to get depth of field. Yeah, I'm gonna have to study that a little more. Like I said, I'm still learning lot to learn about bird photography. Uh, yeah, definitely. So a lot of you have some more experience than I do. I mean, I've been really only seriously birding for a couple, not even 2 weeks yet. It's my first real effort since I got this lens. It's been a week or two, right? But I do have a really good workflow. I think that I'll be excited to share in a video um, once I get it down and sure that it works well for me. And I think it'll help you if you have this particular camera. It'll help you get better images overall. Overall, you know, because of the technique. Because bird photography is still 90%, you know, skill, right? It's not like you're going to buy this camera and lens and go out and get some great shots. You might if you get lucky, and certainly the camera does a lot of the heavy lifting with the autofocus. But even as good as it is, you still have a pretty high learning curve if you've never really done birding seriously, as I'm discovering. And you know, if the bird's sitting in a tree, like you know, in my backyard, yeah, piece of cake, right? But you know, tracking the birds, understanding their behavior and how they fly, and I'm just, you know, uh, um, like David Crooks was talking about the ospreys fluttering, and I had no idea what he was talking about. But the bird is up there, just kind of flapping its wings in one spot. Apparently, that's when they're about to dive down and catch a fish. So when I saw them fluttering, I just kind of looked at it like, oh, they're kind of standing still in the air. Let me get a shot. And I'm not even thinking about they're about to dive down. And maybe I shouldn't worry about them up there, but focus on what's going on down below, right? And be ready for that. So that's just a very small example of, you know, something you learn when you're in the field and you start to do birding seriously. Uh, you know, like I understand the behavior of the birds in my backyard a little better now because I've been sitting out there every other day whenever the weather's appropriate, watching them fly, how they react when Ellie comes running out. Ellie is like guarding the bird feeder. She thinks like that's my source of food or something, so she guards it. So I have to put her inside. Uh, she's a trip. Um, and it took a long time before the birds started coming to my feeder at all. And the kinds of birds that come and how some birds, you know, some birds don't get along. So when one bird comes in, all the other birds leave of this particular type. Lots and lots of things. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit. Am I going to go camo? You're funny. Not going to go quite that far yet. I'll look into it when, you know, when I, you know, you got to take, I got to take baby steps when I get into a particular type of photography. I don't want to make the mistake of just going all in and then never, you know, then having a bunch of stuff I regret buying, you know. You know, this lens here, like I said, I traded in a bunch of stuff so I could buy this. It wasn't like I just went out and dropped 3 grand. I ended up spending about 800 and then trading in a bunch of stuff. Like I traded in a camera that I paid $7 for and I got 200 bucks for it on trade because it's selling for like 400 on eBay. Just to give you an example. So I, you know, I was it hurt a little bit. I didn't like trading some of it in, but I wanted this lens. I wanted this lens more than I wanted the other stuff I traded. Uh, But okay, let me talk about some of the challenges. Um, and oh, thank you, Gary. Yeah, do wear mostly green. That's what I'm seeing. Is if you wear sort of khaki greens and neutral colors or colors that are similar to the environment, you should be okay, more or less. My first time I went out birding, I wore my bright red, photo club hat. I've been wearing that, which is not a natural thing in the particular fields I've been going to. Um, but you notice I got kind of a neutral green color on today, right? Because I wanted to go out birding, but I forgot to bring my battery. Anyhow, uh, let's see. Did you try, in your opinion, about the Tamron 70-300? I have no opinion on that. It's not a lens I own, unfortunately. Sorry. I mean, generally speaking, zooms are not going to be as sharp as primes, but that doesn't help you at all. And 70-300, it's a good focal range. I guess that would be on a APS-C camera, maybe a full frame camera. It's not quite enough, but you could get away with it if the birds are pretty close. Uh, if you can get that on a Micro Four Thirds camera, then you're in pretty good shape because that's a 600 millimeter equivalent. But I don't know about the sharpness or anything on that lens. Okay, so when does the autofocus system have trouble? And this is, I wish I could pull up an image. I moved the stream up an hour, unfortunately, so I didn't have this particular image prepared. But it's something that Chris Nichols noticed when he was looking at the OM1 in the preview, right? Where he was trying to focus on a bird between branches. Let me see if I can pull one up in Lightroom. And I'm going to explain it the best I can so that we understand. And it's just a theory for me why it struggles. Okay. Let me check out my backyard bird images. There's got to be, I've been doing a ton of pruning though. Because you come home with like 10,000 images. I can't have that on my computer because I'm just looking. Where is it having problems? I know where it's having problems. I'm trying to show you a picture because a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? I guess I can flip over to the screen. Not that one. This one. Okay. I mean, there's 2,500 images here, but when I started, there was closer to 9,000, but I've already pruned out a bunch. I still got a long way to go. Maybe here. Yeah, this is a good example. All right, let me punch in 100%. Give that a second to resolve. Okay, the bird's upside down. Like here's the eyeball. Okay, the camera detected the bird. All right, so I did see a little white square around it, but it focused on the branch. Okay, so I think what the camera's doing. Hold on. Let me. Yeah, this is a better view. So I think what the camera's doing is it tries to focus on anything within that white box. So if there's something in front of the bird, even though it sees the bird, um, it's going to focus on anything that's within that white box. And the camera does this constantly. It focuses on stuff in front of the bird, particularly like this branch. So I thought I was going to get this bird in focus, right? Because it's about to jump off this branch, and I'm using Pro Capture, I assume. And but no, it's focused on the branch and not the bird, even though it saw the bird. The AI saw the bird. The autofocus, artificial, whatever, subject detect, bird detect, saw the bird, but it didn't focus on the bird. It focused on the branch because it's focusing on anything within that white box. And this is where the system is having trouble. And I can do countless example after example. Let's see, did it nail it? Okay, after it got away from the branch, it did end up focusing, I believe. Hold on, let that resolve. Not quite. Did it get away from the branch here? Yeah. So you can see once it got away from the branch, the tracking did follow it, did follow the bird down. Is it going to resolve? Give that a second. So it's slightly out of focus here, so it didn't quite nail it. But if I was able to track the bird, I guarantee I would have got this bird in focus within a couple of frames. It takes 3 or 4 frames for it to lock focus on something. And what lens was I using? This is the 300 Pro. And 3 or 4 frames is like a fraction of a second. It's very, very fast, right? Let's see if I can show you another example. Here's some branches. See, now this guy is not behind any branches, but he's out of focus, right? Because what happened? The box, the white box, it focused on this branch up here. Let's see if I ever catch, see the next frame. Yeah, every frame is out of focus. So this is a little bit of a challenge. Here's another one. This time he nailed it because there's nothing in front of the bird at all, right? Almost nothing. These branches, but these are in the same plane of field, I believe. But you'll notice there's no branches anywhere near around this bird, so it nailed the focus, no problem. This is a downy woodpecker. I'll just punch in so you can see. Looks okay. Did it actually it front focused a little bit right here. Because this branch is, a little bit twisty. Yeah, it did a better job, but it still missed. And this bird is tiny, tiny. Give this a okay. Now it's tack sharp. Let's just go to 100%. Still a tiny bit off. It's focused. It's either front focused or back focused on this branch over here. So this is something where this is okay. Let me. I have been able to resolve this issue to some extent, and I'm gonna have to practice a little bit. So this is something where I'm using all focus points all the way around the frame, and the white box is going wherever the bird is. And most of the time it's okay, but I picked out some trouble spots, right? And what I've had to do was change the focus box, not the subject detect is on, but I had to go back, instead of using all points, go back to a smaller group or single point. And then no problem, I can get that. So you still have to resort back to like EM1X or EM1 Mark III type techniques to capture birds like this when there's a lot of clutter right around it. You have to kind of back off and go back to single point or small grouping, 9 box, 5 box, whatever, to make sure you nail the focus on this. A lot of the times it will get the focus with just the subject detect. But when there's a ton of distractions, particularly multiple things within the same focal plane or slightly off, it's going to miss quite a bit. So when the bird's very, these are all tiny birds, right? But that's the only trouble. That's the only problem I'm really running into with these birds. I can show you one more example, because this was a bird I really wanted to capture, but it was really high up in the tree, and it's really rare. I've never seen this bird in real life ever. This is the first time I've seen this bird. It's very rare. Oh, that's a nuthatch. Or it was a what's it called? No, that's a cardinal. Those are dime a dozen. Hold on. Like it did a good job here on this cardinal. But this is where you'll notice, this is what, yesterday or day before. This is where I started using single point. Most likely, I don't know for sure. But this is where I've started narrowing the grouping points. Yeah, I definitely used it. Now I remember. I definitely used single point to capture this cardinal. And as you can see, it's just tack sharp. No problem at all. Where is the when I see the bird, I'll remember the name of it. That's a dove. Did we get the dove in focus? Yeah, we did good there. So sometimes it's fine, right? Is this it? No. That's not it either. See here? Total miss. It focused on the branches down here. I know it's right around here. I really want to show you this. This guy. What the heck is this called? It's a cedar something. I can't remember exactly. But if I go through here, here's the raw image, right? So you can see I had to crop way in, down to like probably not even one. What's the total dimensions here? Cropped is 1/7. Let's say 1/8. So this is 0.8 megapixels. And I'm not even cropped all the way into the bird. But sometimes it focused on the branch over here. And so I had to group the point down to a single point because it was detecting the bird, but then it ended up back focusing or front focusing. It was still struggling even though it saw the bird. So I had to go back to single point to get it. And then I finally got it. A waxwing. Thank you, Ben. Cedar waxwing, David Crooks. Yeah, everybody knows what these are, but me, right? This is really rare. I've never seen this bird in my area. Not that I've ever been looking for them before, right? But it was kind of cool to see that right in my own backyard. So hopefully I'll see it again and he'll get a little bit closer. It was so far away. Oh, so David says he's heard of flocks of them in the area now. That's good. Yeah. So now that I'm out birding, I got these let's see. Man, I got so many windows open. This guy, backyard birds. So I've seen all of these birds. I haven't seen the gray cat bird yet. Everything else I've seen in my backyard except for this gray catbird. I've not seen that. And then, yeah, the common crackle, the European starling. I've seen all of these. The wrens. I've not seen, oh, barn swallow. Yeah, not in my backyard, but I've seen them at Huntley Meadows. The nuthatch. Titmouses, I haven't seen a lot of lately. They used to be all the time in my backyard. I haven't seen them lately. This flicker, I have to go to Huntley Meadows to catch one. Maybe in May, I'll get some hummingbirds. I got to plant some more flowers, though. And I'm going to try and set up a hummingbird like thing in my backyard. It still may be pointless because Ellie's there, always guarding the yard. But goldfinches, I've not seen in my backyard. I did see a kingbird not long ago. I'm sorry, a mockingbird. It was a mockingbird. The kingbird and mockingbird look pretty close. But yeah, I've seen all of these except hummingbirds. I've not seen a bunting in my backyard. I've seen the female, but not the male. But okay, so yeah, I'm there now, right? I'm officially a birding type photographer for now. And I'm really having tremendous success with this new system, particularly out in the field when the sky's pretty open and with larger birds. No problems at all. It's only those very small, tiny birds when they're behind a lot of branches. And it's only going to get harder because once the leaves start growing out and stuff, if you even see the bird, good luck focusing on it. So I'm curious about, what these high-end cameras might be able to do, right? Like, I mean, from other brands, the high-end cameras from other brands, because the all-in-one is a high-end system. But from other brands, because you spend another $1,000 or $2,000, you would think you're getting something, right? Particularly for autofocusing. But so I thought about maybe renting one just to see. Not that I would ever switch, because there's no substitute for a Micro Four Thirds system. How compact and portable they are. And take it with you. Because even with this 300 f4, and someone suggested I take off the collar to save some weight. It does save weight because this is 200 grams. I still got mixed feelings about the way I'm hanging the camera off my neck. But anyhow, because this is a lot of weight to have just hanging off the mount on the camera. I don't want to bend the mount or have it be out of alignment. Whatever. I don't want to break the mount on my camera because I'm not very careful sometimes. And I could knock the lens or drop the camera and it could be a problem. But anyhow, so I may go back and put this collar back on because I much prefer hanging the camera off of this mount rather than the lens, rather than the camera body. What the heck was I talking about? Oh yeah, maybe renting it like a Canon or so. I don't know. I'll think about it because I am curious because I was watching reviews on the 300 millimeter f4 and Tony Northrup, and his reviews are as good as any, honestly. they're all pretty broad, like they don't really get into the nitty-gritty so much. I haven't seen it. The only person that does an excellent job with this kind of photography in reviewing lenses is that guy Matthew Gasquet, Mirrorless Lessons. I've definitely watched his videos and gotten have a very high level of confidence. He knows what he's talking about. But anyhow, Tony was saying get an A6400 with a 200 to 600 lens or something in Sony and you'll get better results. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That just doesn't make sense to me. How is the autofocus going to be that much better, if at all? Maybe it's worse. It's certainly a heavier system overall, but and slower, right? Because it doesn't have the same aperture. So I'm going to be using higher ISOs, etc. It just doesn't make sense to me. But one of my viewers sent me some images from his Sony A7C and 200 to 600 lens. So that's an equivalent price point, right? And in terms of ISO, yeah, definitely full frame goodness there, right? He can shoot at higher ISOs and get cleaner images. But with little processing, a lot of that's mitigated, right, with the software that we have now, and very fine details. So I appreciate him sending those to me, because he saw my images on Instagram and he was impressed, right? But he had some question. I said, well, let me send you my raw images. So I sent him 5 or 6 raw images that were not processed heavily like I do for Instagram. So he could see for himself, because he might be making a buying decision, and you cannot base your buying decision off images you see on Instagram and Flickr and whatever, because those things are so processed like mine. You have to have a baseline, right? What kind of image am I going to get straight out of the camera that I can start from and start processing? And so I sent him a few of mine. He sent me a few of his. And yeah, I definitely noticed the ISOs is much cleaner, right, with a full frame system. And he was able to fill the frame with a lot of the birds that he had, not because he had a more focal length, just because he was able to get a lot closer. So I don't have a good feel for what it's like when you crop in at higher ISOs like I've been doing, nor do I have a feel for how the autofocusing is. Because if you're getting less light into the camera, virtually, I think it's a 5.6 or 6.3 f6.3 lens. I forget what the 200 to 600 is, but you're getting effectively, at least a stop less light, if not almost 2 stops less light than a 300 f4. The autofocusing is not going to work as well, right? It's going to be less contrast, less light, obviously. So even if it had the same autofocusing system as the OM1, let's say the autofocus is equal between the two camera systems. You put on a big lens at f5.6 or f6.3, the autofocus is going to struggle more because it's getting less light anyway, right? So ultimately, you're going to get better results with this, even if image quality and focusing systems were equal. By virtue of using a higher f-stop, you're getting less light and less focusing ability. But I don't know. I think about those things time to time. Like if I want to give people advice about a system, it'd be good to know what other systems are capable of. And right now, I'm loving the OM1, but I don't have a baseline to compare it against. You know what I mean? So, I do hear feedback from people that say it's focusing better than their Sony or their Canon or their Nikon. The OM1 is doing better. And I don't doubt it, but it's one of those things where you trust but verify. And there's not too many reviewers online that I trust or have confidence that they know what they're doing when they're reviewing or comparing camera systems. You know, um, like when I watch Tony's review of the 300 f4, I take it with a grain of salt. I respect what he does and what he's trying to do and the advice he tries to give. I respect that, but trust but verify, right? When Matthew Gasquet from Mirrorless Lessons gives a review, I would trust him about 90% because it's pretty solid. When Gordon Lang does a review, I'm for the things that he covers, because he doesn't cover everything, right? For the things that he's covering, if I was looking for a camera for those kinds of things, I trust him like 99%. But a lot of the reviews out there, my God, they're I don't have that same level of confidence in the other reviewers comparing systems. So anyway, I've been jibber jabbering for a while now. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. I have not seen anything like this, David. Catch and focus or focus traps with the Olympus cameras. Um, because we have Pro Capture and Pro Capture is really better than a focus trap, so to speak. Assuming you use the slower Pro Capture that can continually autofocus. Yeah, that's an old video before the OM1. Yeah, I know. If we're talking about Tony's video, because he was talking about an A6400, which has been out forever. But supposedly when he was talking about the OM1, he said he's going to get one and test it. So we'll see. But you know what's going to happen is they're going to focus on the one problem the camera that I'm having with the branches and stuff. They're going to focus on that one thing and say, you know what I mean? You know how they are. They find something negative, then hammer it like it's the end of the world. It's not. You just flip your switch. I just use this lever. I flip it so I go to a single focus point and bam, it takes me a split second to switch focusing modes uh, or focusing points, I should say. So uh, there's a difference between um, reviewers, so to speak, right? So when I review a camera system, or talk about something, I want to know what I'm talking about and have some experience in the field. Right now I'm just sharing everything that I'm running across and what I'm learning about the system and where I'm struggling. So a lot of times when I post videos like this or in my live stream, I get comments in the chat section or comments down below in the video says, Rob, if you're having trouble with this thing, try this. If you're doing like somebody told me to take the collar off, save me 200 grams in weight, right? That was in a comment or something. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Maybe it'll help, maybe not. Everybody has a different workflow. It works for them, may not work for me, right? And so far I'm liking it with it off, but I'm a little bit uneasy hanging the camera off, because of the weight of the lens overall. But anyhow, I'll have to work that out. Uh, but I'm getting some results. I'm getting amazing results. But you got to understand, I'm cherry picking, right? I'm cherry picking all my images before I post them. But the live streams is my opportunity to talk about, hey, this is real life. This is what's really happening in the field. And for the most part, it's pretty freaking awesome. I mean, I'm not walking back anything I've said about this camera at all. Everything I've said about this camera up to this point, I still truly believe and feel and love this camera for everything it's allowed me to do in photography, and particularly in birding. Uh, so I'm not walking anything back, but I'm showing you the kind of things where I'm having trouble with and trying to learn a workaround. Uh, and that's what these streams, that's what I'm doing this stream for today, was to share with you the experience I've had so far with birding and how amazing it's been. But it's not all, what's the term? It's not all a bowl of cherries or what. I can't even think of the analogy that. Um, but you know what I'm saying. Not everything is perfect. Either it's me or it's the camera or both, right? There's something where I'm missing shots that maybe every camera system would have problems with, but not every photographer, right? Some photographers, all of the challenges that I'm running into, tracking the bird like swallows, taking pictures of them behind the branches, or, all these problems that I'm having may not be a problem for a lot of hardcore birding photographers, right? Just me. And they could do well with any camera. But that's that's why I do these streams. I want to share with you my experience and what I'm going through, the challenges I'm going through, so that if you're struggling with it too, hopefully this helps in some way. Uh, The full phrase is take with a grain of salt of suspicion. Thank you. The expression now makes sense when you understand that. I see. Take with a grain of salt of suspicion. You know, that's funny because I've never heard that other part. But there are a lot of phrases that people just abbreviate because it's assumed we know what the rest is, but obviously we don't. But that makes sense. that's that's kind of funny, but it's not, right? I saw a thumbnail for one of his videos this morning about how cell phones are real cameras too. Um, you're using the spider holster system. Yeah, I don't use a backpack, so I don't have any way to. I have to look into that a little bit because I'm sorry, I'm not even showing his comment. Randy shoots with a 300 f4. He has a D500 and a 200 to 500, so he's got some big lenses, right? That he's got to carry. Um, so I might look into those kind of things. Not yet. I'm not quite there yet. Uh, I do not have the teleconverters. I think I'm going to go with the 2x teleconverter though if I get one. The 1.4 will give me a little bit more magnification. What's it go to? Like a 1.4, so it'll be a 420, right? 420 millimeter. I, you know, I think I'd rather go full on 600 millimeters, so 2x to 300. Because I did, because Bill, Bill lent me his 300 and 2x teleconverter, and I liked it. I mean, yeah, it's not as sharp technically, right? You lose a little bit, and you go to f8, but I can deal with that. If there's times when I want that magnification, so I'm kind of leaning towards a 2x, but I'm not there yet. I'm still moving money around my credit cards and things, trying to optimize the interest rates and stuff to pay for. Because I dropped 2,200 on this camera, another $800 on this lens after trade in. I'm still out 3K. Yeah. Anyway, I'm still moving things around. Because you get these offers, right? 300, 0% financing with balance I'm still trying to work all that out. I got some of it moved in the right direction, but not all of it. And once I get that worked out, I'll be in a much better place. And also David Tellett was asking me if I finished my taxes last night. So now I'm free. I'm so free now. It's such a weight off my shoulders. Oh, but I just buckled down. I took a little nap when I got home. Then I drank some coffee and buckled down and finished them. I've been putting it off. I mean, I've been gathering stuff for the last couple of weeks, putting it together and organizing it. And then I was just at a point that I can't put it off any longer. Everything is here. I just need to start to do the data entry into my spreadsheets and organizing and grouping things back, subtotaling things. Anyway, I got everything done. So I just have to push a button to send it, to actually file it. I wanted to sleep on it last night and look at it one more time before I put submit. Because once you submit the thing, it's a pain to amend anything. Um, and Randy says, you recommend the 1.4x, the 2x, as the 2x has been soft in all my cases. I noticed that a little bit, but I liked it. It didn't bother me quite so much because I can post-process a little bit and get it sharp with the 2x. But the 1.4x, I feel like the little bit of extra magnification might not be worth it. I don't know. We'll see. Never use credit. I know. I mean, if it's 0%, it doesn't, the impact is much less. Yeah. Borrowing money to buy something is generally not a good practice. Um, but if I can get 0%, that impact is mitigated quite a bit, because usually when you're borrowing, you're paying some interest rate, and that's when you get into trouble, big time. But at 0%, I think I can justify financing it a little bit. Uh, and that's what I mean by moving things around. Because right now, some of this stuff is still at 12%, but I haven't had it that long, less than a month for this. Well, the camera's been a month now. So I need to get that off. Because I've just paid 1% interest on it, right? Which is $20 or $22. So I've just added $22 to the cost of this. So I need to get it off of that 12% credit card ASAP, because I'm not gonna. Yeah. Anyhow, that's a whole different channel when we want to talk about finances. But this is good advice. Rule of thumb. Yes. Oh yeah, Randy. Yeah, I just saw your one video. I watched a couple of yours, but I didn't watch the new one you put up, um, about when things go wrong. I just saw that thumbnail this morning, so I'll definitely check that out. But Randy has a great channel. He drives around and just takes pictures or does drones and explores different areas. It's all desert. It's interesting though. You've built your entire kit on zero interest credit, right? And they're talking about raising rates big time here in the US. So my window to get this into a 0% situation is getting smaller. Oh, John Allen, I missed a if anybody has any questions, this is a good time to ask now, because uh is larger megapixel 42 camera for birding? Well, in theory, all things being equal, more megapixels is better for cropping. Uh, you just have to combine that with a super good lens, right? That can resolve 42 megapixels. Because I thought about that, right? You get a 42 or 50 let's just say 50 megapixels, right? The megapixels, each pixel is so tiny. Uh, is the lens really going to be able to resolve those little tiny pixels? Uh, let me close the door because Ellie is losing it. Probably UPS guy or something. So in theory, it is better to have more megapixels, but you have to combine that with a lens that can resolve 42 megapixels so that you can crop in and still get a good image. Uh, and that's a lot. That's a lot of the reason I got this 300 f4 Pro, because yeah, the 75 to 300 takes great images when you don't have to crop too much, but once you start cropping, you start seeing the noise and grain and the inability for the lens to resolve uh, those those pixels individually. Whereas this 300 Pro is definitely doing a better job. Um, so yeah, higher megapixels is always better if you have a lens that can resolve it. And it's not one thing. You have to look at the whole system uh, to make the right decision, because you might be that a 24 megapixel camera will get sharper images than a 42 megapixel camera, um, because the pixels are bigger and the lens is able to resolve within every pixel. It's yeah, you have to look at everything, the lens and the camera together. Oh, that's interesting. In time, I'll probably want the 1.4, prefer the 1.4 to the 2x. Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm definitely gonna wait on getting a teleconverter. Not just for financial reasons, right? Because it's $400 or whatever it costs. I mean, that's a big part of it, but um, money no object. I had it both right now, but money is an object for me. Um, David's asking, can you adjust the size of the focus box screen when tracking? No, the tracking box is just a one size square. If you're talking about the tracking box, if you're talking about focusing points, that's different. What you might want to try is the what's it called? Cluster focusing, where the focus points move around on their own. That will probably give you better results than tracking. I can show you how to do that, but basically, well, you have an EM1X. David just bought an EM1X. David, tell it. That surprised me, but that's awesome. Awesome camera, that EM1X. And I did get your email. I saw those pictures, man. Those were great. He bought an EM1X with a 75 to 300 and got great shots yesterday. No, I'm not neglecting. I took it out with me yesterday. So I did because I wanted to do some comparison shots. Let's let me see. Yeah. Okay, here's a couple comparison shots. Right? So I have the 75 to 300 here on the left and the 300 f4 Pro. And I'm in relatively good light. But I didn't do the exposure right. It's because my ISO's at 2000 over there and only 200 over here. This ISO over here, oops, let me move this back. But you can see it's pretty close. Despite the difference, the ISO over here says 250, but I had to push the exposure 1.5 stops, so it's more like 1000 ISO over here on the right. But you can see it's pretty close now, right? The detail, it is softer, partially because I'm at a higher ISO, but partially because the lens is softer. Let me see if I have another one here. So that's something far away, right? Because I like to test lenses at distance and then something close, right? It's far away, close, midway. Here's a frog. So these are at the same ISO. And I'm only showing you these just because I'm trying. I'm not going to use these like as an official like test, because the problem with this image, even though we're at the same ISO, look at my shutter speed. I'm at 1/90th of a second. Yeah, the IBIS is probably working fine here. But you can see the 300 is definitely sharper. But is that because it's a sharper lens, or is that because, I have a better shutter speed here versus over here? There might be just a 1 pixel's worth of motion blur here. Like, it's not perceptible looking at it. So it could be anything. My shutter speed here is too slow for me to pass judgment on this lens. But I did want to get in the field and test the sharpness between these two lenses. So I'm working on it. Here's another. I think this one's a little bit, this is probably the only one that's actually representative between these two lenses. So 300 f4 here on the left, 75 to 300 on the right, and they're at roughly the same shutter speed and ISO. Apertures are slightly different, but not enough. But this is legit to me. one is there's two problems here. Is the 75 to 300 is a little bit softer, not much. You know, you move the sharpening slider, you won't be able to tell a difference. But there's also some focus breathing issue, right? I'm not getting the same magnification out of the 75 to 300 when I'm focusing on something relatively close. That focus breathing is amplified quite a bit the closer the subject is. It seems. So I'll do some more testing side by side, because honestly, I think, you know, the short answer is the 75 to 300 is awesome. That is the short answer. But for those that have the 75 to 300 and might be thinking about the 300 to f4 or the 100 to 400, you know, I that's why I'm going to do this kind of testing. If you don't have the budget for a 100 to 400 or a 300 f4, you won't have any regrets with the 75 to 300. I'm telling you that right now. It's a freaking awesome lens. But the question is, do you invest in more expensive glass, right? And that's partially why I'm doing this test, is not to challenge the 75 to 300. What I'm doing here is I'm challenging the 300 millimeter f4. I'm like, okay, 300 millimeter f4, $3,000. Do you live up to that? Is the question, right? Because you can get this lens for $450 right now, the 75 to 300. And it's, you know, for a shot like this, no freaking way would I tell somebody to buy a 300 f4. No way, right? Let me back off. So this is what, about 25% of the frame? But it looks good. The bokeh is pretty smooth. You know, I still got onion rings on both. I mean, little things, right, that we look at when we look at lenses. But yeah, if I was taking a picture of a frog and somebody said, okay, you can take a picture of this frog. Do you want to spend 3,000 or do you want to spend 500? You know, well, $500 all day long, right? Because all I have to do is just turn the slider up here a little bit. Let me just add a little bit of masking. Now give that a second to render. I turned my CPU speed way down. Now what looks sharper? Actually, the 75 to 300 looks sharper to me now. I could do the same thing on the 300 f4, obviously, right? But in terms of color and detail and everything else, bokeh, there's not a lot of difference between these two lenses in this particular shot, right? Clearly. So I'm not ignoring my 75 to 300. In fact, there'll probably be a lot of times I'll take my 75 to 300 out and leave the 300 f4 at home. If I know what I'm doing, I'll be fine with this lens and get really good results. Oops, where's my mouse? Oh, okay. Marcia says she uses cluster focus a lot. So Dave Tellett, definitely look into cluster focusing. I know Robin Wong has a video on it that you can find. I think if you just do Robin Wong cluster focusing, you'll find it very quickly. And he tells you exactly how to access it. It's very simple, but it's hard for me to verbalize it. I'd have to show you on a camera, which I don't have set up right now. But if I see you again in the field, I can show you. And Jason says, been impressed with the AI focus for dogs and birds. Would you say it's safe to assume it will work as well as on? Yes, it does work well. Planes and helicopters, actually. I have the M1 on order. Interested free. For Blue Angels in July. Yeah, it works great. I mean, I've only done a few shots of planes, uh, maybe a dozen, but they were all great. I did a helicopter, just nails a helicopter just like a plane, believe it or not. So they must have the AI set up for planes and helicopters because it just saw the helicopter instantly. But yeah, it works great. Yeah, I can't wait to go to like a real air show. What specs do we look for as far as lens resolution ability? There's no really good way other than DxO has a database of lenses, but they don't have all lenses that we might be interested in. But I found DxO pretty reliable. I mean, I wouldn't believe the numbers individually, right? Like we were saying before, take everything with a grain of salt of suspicion. But at least with DxO, they have a consistent methodology. So based on that, when you look at one lens, when you look at two lenses that DxO has reviewed, and they say this one's a little sharper than that one, I'll believe it. How much sharper is a different question because of the way they test. So you have to look at the individual numbers of their testing on a lens a little more critically than you would, say, a ranking. If they rank this lens better than another lens, okay, that's a good start. And then dive into the individual numbers and see why did they rank this lens better. Sometimes they rank the lens better because it's brighter. They let more light in. But DxO is the only source that I found that I could consistently go to if the lens was in their database. Now there's MTF charts. A lot of times manufacturers will publish the MTF charts with their lenses. That is not quite as reliable when comparing from different brands. If you're comparing MTF charts within a brand, like all the Olympus OM system MTF charts, that makes a little more sense because they are consistent. The testing methodology is a little more consistent. But MTF charts, again, are subjective, is what I found out, and you can't rely on them quite as much either. It's almost pointless to compare MTF charts between different brands. It's not as much of a problem for Micro Four Thirds users because we're usually buying OEM stuff anyway. But for other manufacturers, for other camera systems where there's a lot of different brands making lenses for their system, comparing MTF charts between different brands is not any way to compare lenses. So short answer is there's just no way of knowing. I'm going to test and compare lenses the way I test and compare them. And over the years that I've done that, there's definitely been some criticism in my methodology. But for the people that watch the videos and appreciate the way I did them, if that kind of testing works for the kind of way they shoot, my reviews can be very helpful. For others, not helpful at all, right? So you just have to do quote unquote due diligence and search out every possible review of a particular lens that you're interested in, and then come up with your own consensus of is this lens going to be right for me? Is it going to be sharp enough? And that there's just no way to there's no one-stop shop or one-stop resource or reliable, I think, credible source for lens image quality. You just have to go with the reviewers that you trust, that test in a way that makes sense to you. Because even if they're right, you found a reviewer that you really like, did a good job, has told you this lens is great. You buy the lens and then there's sample variation, right? The copy that you got is a little bit off and you're not getting good results. So there's so many variables that You know, I've heard like the 17 millimeter f1.8. I've heard people returning that lens 2-3 times before they got a copy that was any good. Um, you know, I've been lucky. The copy I got's been very good to me, but I hear stories like that, unfortunately. So I wish I could give you a better answer. Let's see. What specs. So I'm sorry. Let me just back up to this. There's no specific specs for lens resolution that you can rely on when you talk about specs, but that would be MTF charts specifically. If you want to look at specs, okay. Okay. Just seeing if there's any other questions here. I don't see any, so maybe we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. If there's any other questions, go ahead and ask them right now. I'll wait 30 seconds. I think it takes about 30 seconds from the time you type it to the time I see it. But those were the 75 to 300 is awesome. Like I said, I'm working on some comparison type shots. If nothing else, when I make a video about the 75 to 300, I want you to feel that your purchase is justified. You got a great lens. And there's almost no reason to buy a 300 f4 unless you want that f4 fast, you know, for lower ISO, which can make a difference. That's my gut feeling now. Money no object, get the 300 f4, which reminds me, I did have a poll. A lot of people, it was pretty equal between, let me pull up that poll. Real quick. This poll here. So 574 votes. A third will buy the 300 millimeter f4 Pro, and this is a money no object type question. And the root of the question is really, if you're trying to get 300 millimeter focal length or better, you know, what lens would you choose? A zoom lens or a prime lens? A fast lens or a slower lens with some more flexibility, right? Like the 100 to 400. But it was pretty much evenly split, other than the 300 f4 Pro. It's probably a little biased because this is the most expensive lens, so people are going to say, well, I'm going to get the 300 f4 Pro. But the comments down here were also very good. A lot of good feedback in the comments section as well. So if you haven't seen this poll yet on my community tab and you're interested in a lens, you can definitely check here and try to get, you know, maybe to help you make a decision of what lens to get if you've been thinking about a telephoto lens. This 5% on the 75 to 300, I think if you flip this question to say which lens did you actually buy, I bet all these numbers would flip, right? But as it is, if I put down money no object, these are the results you get. If I put down what lens did you buy, I bet the results will be totally different, you know. But I don't want to limit people's budget when it comes to lens choice. You know, I want them to be, you know, I wanted to get an idea of, you know, what lens would be interesting, particularly like the 40 to 150 Pro versus the 100 to 400, because you can get the 40 to 150 Pro with the teleconverters and almost get a 100 to 400, but in terms of speed and all that. The 300 f4 Pro is kind of in a class by itself. So these two numbers were interesting. It was pretty evenly split. But that's that. So definitely check that out when you get a chance. So Yeah, 65% would select the zoom. Yeah, David definitely went for the 75 to 300. I'm sorry, the 100 to 400. Like I said, if you don't have a lens now and it's in your budget, get the 100 to 400. It's definitely sharper, no question, and gives you a little more reach, but it's definitely sharper by by a substantial margin. The the 100 to 400 versus the 300 f4 Pro, from the little bit of testing I did, the difference is very subtle. It's not much difference at all. Uh, my decision to get the 300 f4 Pro was mainly based on getting an extra stop or two stops of light into the lens. Um, and not so much because it was sharper, but because of the extra light. But okay, everyone, you have a good weekend. I'll be back maybe Sunday. I'm going to start and try cranking out some videos again. I might put a birding video out about settings and things. It may be a little premature, but the settings are working really well for me. So I thought I might share them with you. And then we can always make another video later if I get better, right? So you guys have a great weekend. I'm having a lot of fun. It was great talking to everybody again. Hopefully you found some things useful here. If so, consider supporting the channel with the links down below. Any donations, they really help me out a lot, and they're greatly appreciated. So we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for coming.